Hello everybody, my name is Alan, I'm from Sauber-Lab and today will be another video about Synology NAS. In this video specifically we're going to show how you can install Docker in your Synology NAS. In this way you can have more applications. And you're going to ask why I wanted to have more application in my DSM. And it's simple. Synology allowed the developers create or add application as long as they customize and have all the quality checks by Synology. But sometimes not all the developers want to do it because it's a little bit more work. And if work Docker, why don't put in the Docker? And in this way, we're going to show how you can expand this quantity of applications and how you can use both words, the Synology applications and the Docker applications. So in this video specifically, we're going to show how you can install Docker, how you can configure different users specific for the Docker, how you can create volumes, and how you do the base configuration. In this way, once that you go for some specific application, you have the base and that you understand what you should do or what you shouldn't do to avoid any trouble. So if you like this idea and want to learn a little bit more about it, we're going to show in this video. But first of all, don't forget to leave your like, consider subscribe for the channel if you're not subscribed, and let's understand a little bit more about it. Before I start to explain how you can install Docker in your Synology NAS or in your DSM, we need to understand what is Docker. Docker, it's basically a platform that you create virtualizations for different applications. And this one, or these applications, is called containers. Basically how it's working. In the past, a developer wanted to create application. This application was done initially for Windows or initially for Linux, and that's once that they want to use other operating system, they needed to adapt this code. And sometimes this adaptation is easy, sometimes this adaptation takes time because Linux and Windows is totally different operating system and lots of things different and they work different. So the packagings that you find in Linux is not exactly the same packaging that you will find in Windows, and therefore you need to adapt it. So with Docker, this adaptation is not required anymore because Docker is already the base application. So it doesn't matter if you're using Linux, if you're using Windows, if you're using Mac and continue on, the base from the Docker, they will create that base OS, and that in the top of it will come the container. So you only need to do one application specific for that Docker system. And in this way, save a lot of time of development. Of course, if you want to use an application for user and that needed to install in their own operating system, this don't work. But if you wanted to do application that will create some services, will be really great on the Docker. Why I say some service? Let's say WordPress. You can install WordPress directly in the Docker and run it directly in the Docker, and it will run really well without you needing to install outside the Docker. Also, because it's a virtualization, you can do everything that you want the same way that will be a virtualization. So you can create some volumes, you can delete those volumes, you can install the application, the uninstalled application, you can restrict ports, you can restrict access and continue on, and that this Docker will allow you to do it. Also, because you can install this they will not leave any trace of this installation in your system, different that if you install directly in the OS. So if you install a WordPress in the Linux and that you want to uninstall it, will have all the trace of this installation. And in the case of a Docker, you don't need to worry about it because basically you can only delete the volumes. That's great. Also, if you want to migrate this system from one place to another place, it's really easy because you only need to copy the volume for another location and recreate this Docker container, and that everything should run well. Doesn't matter if you're moving from Windows to Linux, it will be exactly the same. Only thing that will affect is different platforms. Why I say different platforms? Because if they are programmed to run with 864 bits and you go to system ARM, yes, will have some differentiations, and if you didn't program it, they will not work. So have this one in mind first thing that we're gonna do is go to our operating system. Here my computer hits my DSM. DSM it's running a normal computer. If you don't have this installation or you would like to do it, please confirm the link below in the description where I show how you can install or get any kind of computer and install the DSM. But anyway, let's come here and we'll look for the control panel. Because I'm running with revision 7.1, my Docker will be called Docker. If I run with update revision, they will call container manager, but will be exactly the same and we'll compare both. So first thing that we need to do before any kind of installation, what's my opinion, is create a user. Why this user? This user will guarantee that this Docker will have access only for that specific folder, and also the other user will not have access for that specific folder. Other thing that I don't like is to leave root permission or admin permission with the Docker, because they can do a little bit more things and you want to restrict this access. So let's come here in user and let's create a user specific to run Docker. Because will be a user specific to run Docker, the name of this user should be Docker. So if I come here put create, I'll create a user called Docker. I generate a random password because I'm never gonna use this Docker to access my Synology or do anything else, only SMB or only internal access. I don't need to remember this password. Anyway, if I want to use this in the future, I can always modify this password. So now I put next, and here will be what group that I want to join. I want to join the group users, the rest I don't want to allow the permissions, and I put next. Now I define what folder that I want to have permission. If you didn't install Docker, this application, this folder Docker will not be accessible, and after you need to modify it. If you already have installed Docker, you're gonna click read and write permissions, also this folder media. This folder media will be all my media when that I install Sonar, Radar, Plex and continue on, and that they need to have access for it. Now I can block this applications permission, and also I block homes. Why homes? Because I'm not using Synology Drive, not using Synology Photos for this user, so I don't need to create a homes for this. So I put next, and now code. I don't need to define any restriction because they will only use Docker, and I need to allow them to use as much as they need to run the application. So I don't need to define any limitation. Put next, and now the applications that I want to allow. So initially I will deny everything, and that I will allow them to use file system and SMB. SMB it's interesting for have access for the folders, and file system because they're using Synology. So now I put next, no quotes as well, no restriction of speed, and I put next, and I put done. Now I have my user called Docker. Next step that I need to do is install Docker. If you did install, once that you install, they will appear this folder called Docker automatically, where they will have all the application, where we're gonna install all the applications. So if you didn't have it before, you're gonna need to come here back, edit, permissions, and allow the permission for this user Docker. Otherwise, they will not have access for it. Anyway, we're gonna come here, pack system, and we'll type Docker. Once that you type Docker, they will appear Docker. Don't worry, if you're using the DSM 7.2, will be type Docker the same way, and that will appear container manager. Docker and Docker exactly the same. If I open this one and I open this one, you can see that it's basically the same. One's a little bit more updated than the other, but only thing that will have difference will be this project. And this project, we'll go through it, explain a little bit more about it, but at this stage, it's exactly the same. So let's start to configure it, or let's start to set up this Docker. First thing that we're gonna do is come here in register, and here it's all the application that I can install. Because only for reference, we're gonna try to install this Sonar. So this sonar, it's part of Linux server where it has over 1 billion downloads, so it's a lot of people use it. If I go a little bit down, here's the architecture that I was telling. So this sonar don't have architecture for this specific architecture, so not to run with a CPU that have this system. The rest will run ARM64 and x86 64 bits. So let's come here and look for sonar. The same way, if you're gonna choose any image, choose the ones that have more stars, because more people download and more people it's happy. So we'll come here and double click, and they will take some minutes to read the information and ask what kind of revision that you want to download. So let's wait a little bit. Now they ask you to choose what revision that you want. If you have any reason to go for old revision, it's here, but I suggest always to select the latest one and put select. What will happen now, if you come here in image, they will start to download this image. This one takes some minutes until they download, but normally it takes a few seconds and will be quite fast. So let's wait they finish download. Once that finish download, we'll have all the blue lines here. I can double click. Here it's when I can start to install everything. So if I come here and put run for my sonar, it will be a little bit different, but basically the same. So let's go for this stage. First thing, we're gonna select the network and put next. Next thing, we're gonna define the name. My opinion, I always leave as the name of the application to avoid any extra name and be simple. So because I'm running sonar, I'll leave sonar. Now I put enable auto start. Here I don't need to enable as a high privilege. I don't need to enable any restriction because I want to allow that this application run and use as much RAM memory that I want. Only thing that you need to be aware that if you're using Cloudflare, the same Cloudflare that I'm using, you don't need to activate it, this web portal via station. But if for any reason you're using the web station for Synology to run all your SL certification, so you need to configure it here and define a port. I'm not running, so I don't need to do it, and I put advanced settings. Here in advanced settings, we need to look for all my environmental. So if I come here in my sonar and I come here in environmental, here will be all the information, and here will be the environment information. You can see that have PUID, PGID. These ones will be the ID from the user, and because we're using the Docker user, we need to discover it. How we can discover it? We need to open put. So first, before we open put, we need to come here in my settings, come here in terminal, and I need to activate this SSH. Don't leave it activate all the time, because if someone enter your network and try to open port 22 and have access for admin user, this person will basically have access for all your server and will be able to do everything, because with the SSH they can do any command, they can delete, can modify and do everything that they want. So once that you finish to check your configuration, don't forget to disable it. So let's open our PuTTY, and here with my PuTTY open, I will log in with my service, will be 192.168.1.253. Here they will ask for me to do the login. I suggest you to use your root or your admin, so I'll put Sauber-Lab. I will put my password, and here I will want to look for my user Docker. So to do it, I will put ID Docker and put enter. So if I look here, my UID will be 1033 and my GID will be 100 and my group ID will be 100. So now I can close it and I can disable this option only to guarantee that no one will have access. Come here my Docker and I will add a new one. The first one will be PUID and this one will be 1033, and I will add PGID, that will be 100. Exactly the same way that they ask me. I need to do time zone, not necessary, it's good for locate your time, but it's not mandatory. Other thing, look for these volumes. So now I can put save, and here I have the first stage. So I put next, and now they ask for my ports. If I look here, they say port 8989, and this port is to be able to web interface this application. What means web interface? This option, if I come here, they will give me the option to access this container outside the container. So if I come here and delete this container, I will not be able to access it because basically this container insulating their own world. Once that I allowed to have external access, I will be able to access it outside. So if I put 8989, will be the local port against of my container port. If I leave empty in the Docker, they will create automatically random numbers and it's not interesting. So please really define it, and here it's really important you define. If you don't define, if you delete this local port for any reason, you're not going to be able to access your container because they will be blocking their own word. So let's put next, and here it's the volume. You have two options. You can go ahead and click next, and it will create a temporary volume. But what's the problem to create a temporary volume? If for any reason you want to update this container, and this will happen quite often because they will find some patches or they will try to update to make it work better, you didn't define a physical volume in your DSM. So if you disinstall or you update your container, all your configuration will be lost. So it's really important for you to define a folder. And how you know which folders that you need to define? Let's go back here in my Docker, and they say what configuration or what folder that they need to give. First one will be the config, where they will save all the database, and that will be TV, where will be all my TV library, and downloads, where they will do the downloads. So basically these three folders is really important. At this stage I only configure these two top ones, and the last one I can leave for a side because I'll not install any download application, so I don't need to worry about it. So I come here config, I copy it, I come here my Synology, I put add a folder, Docker, Sonar, and put select. What I'm gonna do now, I put /config. So if I come here, now will be the TV chance. I come here, add a folder, select my media, select TV, and I save it. If I want for the application only be able to read it, I will put read only, but in my case I want to then process the data. So we need to read and write. So I don't need to select it and put next, and here they will give the overview. Remember when I told that container will be exactly the same? Basically the same view. We can enable auto start, define the name of the container. We're not gonna select this option of web station, put next. I already have this container, so we'll put number 2. Here the local ports, I can define the ports, so we'll put 8989. If they already use it, they will block for me. And I select my media, call TV show, and put /TV. And now my paths, I will add 2, that will be PUID, PGID. I put the values that I have, and I put next, and basically the same. So let's close it and come here, put done. What will happen? They will install this application, will pull it, and here will be the container, and that they will start to run. Things that are really important, if I come here in details, will be my ports, my volumes, and my network. Why it's my port? If I don't define any port, they will not have access external to this container, and that I will not be able to access this container at all. My volumes, it means that it's really important for me to have the volumes, otherwise if I want to update this container for a new revision, I'm gonna lose my data. And my network, to confirm which kind of containers that will have common access. And here my network, I can add extra networks and configure it in order that one container will have access for the other container. Suppose that I don't want that Cloudflare communicate for my Sonar, I'll put in different networks, and basically there will be different switches, and that they will not have access between themselves. So in this way we show how to run a container tracking register. But in the Docker, old Docker, you don't have any option to run as a Docker Compose, and it's quite bad. It is reason that once that they update and put this project option, make a lot of sense and make my life much easier. Why? Because in the past I used it to run Portainer, and in Portainer I used to use or run all the Docker containers. And sometimes the Docker containers have a lot of information that you save time only to modify here quite fast, compare for you go line by line and add, remove and continue on. So now what we can do, we can come here and create, and the name of my project will be Sonar, my path that I want. So I will come here and Docker Compose, and here I can upload the Docker Compose if they are in that location. So I can come here and select my Docker Compose, or I can only come here and put create a Docker Compose. And once that I create the Docker Compose, I can tape it, and it's really easy. Copy, paste, and that they run exactly the same way that we run Portainer. And here I can modify my volumes, here I can modify my environmental, here I can modify my ports and put next. I select here if I wanted to use my web station, and that's it. Once that I put done, they run everything. So only remember 3 things that's really important. You don't forget to create volumes, you configure your ports, and you configure your network. User, it's something that I like to do because I wanted to extra protection, but it's not mandatory. So in this way, now all the rest of the applications or all the rest of the containers will be basically the same. You need to configure volumes, you need to configure user ID if you want to choose a specific one, or if you want to only choose your admin one, you need to configure your ID for this user. And at least, and the more important, create the volumes. Create volumes, a physical volume, for avoid that you lose it, and if you want to migrate, you can only copy that volume folder that you already define your DSM in another place, and that run it in the same way. So in this way, we arrive in the end of this video. I hope that you guys like this video. If you like this video, please don't forget to leave a like, consider subscribe for the channel if you're not subscribed yet, and see you next time. Bye.